too much ankles are showing. I look like a whore.
You need those knee-high socks, bro. Those knee-high socks.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to keep that in.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Another episode of Bikini and the Brain with
Hi.
Ashley K.
That's what they call me.
And that's my favorite look on you is the polka dot.
Oh, I'm just trying to have fun with it, trying to be all matchy to match the red lights in the gym today.
Oh yeah, you're monochromatic.
Monochromatic
on a
up
Friday.
in here.
On a Friday. That's pretty.
Not even a Monday. It's
pretty epic.
We're gonna do a monochromatic Monday though.
Yeah.
We are going to.
It's not going to be black.
No, it's definitely not. I already, I think about this all the time, what we're going to do. Yeah. But that's for a later chat.
I'm so mad that I'm always in, I don't know how I ended up always in black and I never really noticed it, so you pointed it out.
It's like a funeral, bro.
It's always that way. And then Antifa stole my color.
Oh, man. And the funerals stole your color.
And I was like, I don't even want to go anywhere near a rally because people are just going to assume I'm Antifa or something.
You're absorbing so much sunlight when you walk outside.
I know, I'm in the wrong place. I should just hook up an electric source from my sweaters.
Oh.
So, all right, Ashley, what's going on today? How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well, thank you. As you know, Fridays are my favorite day, Pumpin' Podcast Day. I love talking to you guys through your mobile device, through your headphones, through your car speakers. But you know what, Adam? I've been thinking about something for a long time. And that is fats. The fats.
Yeah?
Fats. Fat facts.
Fat facts?
Yeah, fat facts.
So that what we're going to do is just kind of talk about fat facts.
I want to talk
today.
about the fats.
All right.
With the F, not the PH. Fats. Because you know what? Sometimes I like to pick your brain. I do. I don't know if you noticed. Sometimes we have those podcasts where it's like, I chose it just so I can learn from you.
Well, let's see if where my strength is in this one. Then.
Yes, because what's always been super fascinating to me is fat distribution. What causes fat to accumulate in certain areas for some people and others not, and also the different kinds of fats, because I don't think people realize there are different kinds of fats.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like if you were to cut open a cooked chicken, some of it's like that rubbery white, some of it's like a darker too. Yeah. It's kind of like, we're just like that sometimes.
No, we are like that. We have, and what's funny is that in the last 15 years, they've actually found that there's different types of fat in the human body. So they knew that there was fats before. Like they knew there's this thing called brown fat and then there's white fat, right? So the brown fat they used to think was just in kids. And so they were like, oh, you grow out of it. It's like an adolescent thing and you grow out of it.
Like baby fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I wonder if that's what they actually were directly referring.
Maybe.
Huh. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. But yeah, so they thought that the brown fat's actually really, really good fat. You want a lot of brown fat. And white fat is not so good.
So why is brown fat good?
Brown fat is good because it actually has a lot of mitochondria. And basically what that means is it basically has its own metabolism. So it actually burns calories. So you can actually burn white fat with brown fat. Yeah. So isn't that crazy? So it's actually a fat burning fat. So it's, as opposed to white fat, it's pretty much just stored energy that doesn't have any effect, in terms of metabolism. So if you have, and that's why you're seeing what's really cool too is with the new science and research that comes out, you're actually seeing a lot of people take those cold baths and stuff for longer periods of time. This is, I don't know how much theory this is, but it is semi-researched. So I would say it's in the early stages of confirmation. From what I've seen, there might be stuff that I haven't seen. So the theory is the more cold that you do, the cold baths that you do for long periods of time. What's so crazy is it's always they always say long periods of time. I'm like, what's long period of time though? What does that define as? And at what point is it dangerous, right?
Yeah.
But they say you can help basically build more brown fat and even convert fats. So so it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not wanting to trying to if I'm going to have fat, I'm going to try to get rid of it more than just
Right.
build more and then convert to brown. But I don't know. I don't know the whole, I'm limited on that. That's not my area of expertise.
Right.
But
Yeah. I wonder if it looks the same in the body. You know what I mean? Like underneath your skin, if it looks or feels any different, or if you wouldn't know until you cut somebody open, if that makes sense.
So it is different in color. You can definitely see the difference in color. And it is in different, more times than not, it's in different areas too, like the areas that you'd expect. So the white fat is typically in the areas that you'd expect. Girls, it's going to be in the back of the arms, the hips, the legs, the areas where you can like pinch fat and you like see fat. That's where it's going to be. But typically in areas where you're pretty lean or your fat's kind of consistently there for your whole life, even if you're lean, like your middle of your back, your shoulders, areas like that, like your chest, like you're going to have more brown fats. So that's the difference of those two. So but the thing is, what they found, and the reason that they found out that brown fat was like really good for people is because they found that fit, healthy people had more brown fat.
This is interesting.
Yeah, so like there seems to be some, I don't know if they're ever going to be able to prove this or what, but there seems to be a theory that the more you exercise, the more fit you are, the more you do activity, the more you're going to be able to build brown fats versus white fats. So, I mean, I guess the conclusive evidence would be that people who are more fit have more brown fat as a whole. That's kind of like the reason that theory is there. So, but yeah, that's a fat fact for you.
Fat facts, number one. I've also got another question for you, Adam. I think a lot of people will use excuse. Maybe like they weren't lean enough on stage or whatever, and they just say, "Oh, I'm holding water." But I think sometimes it's really hard to differentiate if it's actually water or if it's fat. I think that's the reason why sometimes you'll hear people try to maybe avoid salt sometimes, is because they think that it's going to make them like puffier and then maybe get that confused with fat. I don't know. There's this weird, I think a lot of people in the industry know like salt doesn't cause fat, but people that don't know any better, they don't know that water is easy to get rid of.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is there a way to tell if, like, just by pinching your skin or whatever, if your body's holding water or if it's actually fat? I mean, I know personally sometimes when I'm holding water, like my hands, I'll wake up and they're very stiff feeling. Yeah. And I feel like for me that's an indication that I'm holding water. Or my ankles, kind of the same thing too. They'll be very like stiff in the morning.
Yeah.
And then obviously if you have that little sock line too, like you wear socks before you go on a plane and then you land and then you have that sock mark, obviously that's water. So those are pretty obvious telltale signs that you're holding water instead of fat. But is there any other like tests that you can do offhand without a scanner?
So I think we can unpack that as multiple questions, right? But so as far as knowing, there's not really, so what I find is that people just know their bodies pretty well. So like the main ones that we're going to go off of, because it's going to be visual, there's no way you can like pinch someone in now. I see that happen too. Like you'll see like, that's the funniest thing to me, when you see like a coach backstage and he'll be like a rookie coach and he'll be like trying to be like the expert. Like pinch a girl and be like, "Oh no, that's water."
Or they'll
that's
do the press test or something like
dude,
like if it stays or something. I don't know.
It takes the amount of money it takes for equipment to figure that out for you is so expensive. The equipment is so, you're talking DEXA scan, like bioelectrical impedance, like is okay at it, but like you can't do it with your hands. Yeah. You can ask the person; they know their body really well. If they like your hands are really watery, I'm not even going to be able to really see that,
Right.
The sock I'll see, the sock marks I'll see, things like that, if it's more than normal. But the person can kind of generally be like, oh yeah, I can definitely feel it. I can feel my hand.
Sometimes your face too gets swollen.
And it's hard for a coach to be like, oh yeah, I can tell. You have to be so lean to be able to tell. You can tell sometimes, like it's there, but it has to be like, for example, like you're leaner one day and then the next day you're all of a sudden you're soft because we flew in somewhere or you started your period or something like that.
Right, yeah. You're not going to like lose your abs overnight unless it's like I've done that before with like before I met you. You know, after a show, went for a cheat meal that was a little too much.
You know what?
Have no abs by the next day.
We should go into that too, because that is actually a thing that I see being one of the bigger mistakes people make.
Yeah.
And so you talked about sodium, and you talked about water retention, and you talked about cutting sodium to remove water retention, which I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
But as I've been doing this more and more, I have been understanding the reasoning why, and I've been knowing that that's a pretty, you can consistently kind of see if someone cuts their sodium the last day, just for like a day, you can consistently like kind of like erase that as being a possibility of them having, but if you're keeping your sodium consistent, there should be no issues. We've yet to cut sodium. So I do understand, I do see, and the reason I say that is that it's one of those things that you can't really prove too, right? It's like bodybuilders do it at the highest level, like the last day or so. And at the highest level, if they're doing it, you know, a lot of times these bodybuilders figure things out before we do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things, and you'll get all these science guys, and I always say the same thing to the science guys. I'm like, hey, and they'll like give me this argument about whatever, right? And I'll be like, hey, you know what? I'm immortal. And they'll be like, that's stupid. I'm like, is it though, right? Am I immortal or am I not? And they're like, you're not, because everyone's died. I'm like, but you can't prove that I'm not immortal, right? You can't prove it unless you killed me.
Yeah.
So until it's proven, right, that argument is still valid, even though it's a stupid argument, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe that. But like the truth is, you know, you can't disprove it, right? So like sometimes things work and it just, you can't prove that because the test study is too minimal, right, to prove something. So like a bodybuilder, like you take a guy, like, let's say Sean Roden. I don't know if he does it, but his genetics, his structure, his V-taper, his everything is so crazy already when he's getting that day. I don't even know if he does cut his sodium the last day, but if he does and he looks sharper the next day and it's been working for him for 20 shows, like we're not going to probably be able to prove that because there's so many factors going on that day.
Yeah.
That how are you going to prove that that was the one, right? So it's just one of those things you just can't prove. So anyway, as far as the sodium goes, if you're being smart about it and you're just like maybe reducing the last day, it's probably not dangerous. If you're cutting it completely for days, that's crazy. You're definitely going to mess yourself up. You're not going to look as full, you know, that's for sure. But the last day, I don't know. You know, I'm always open to it. That's the thing. I'm not like such a science guy where I'm like only science, because I know what these guys at the top level do, and they do a lot of things that don't go by the book.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, there's a hormone called aldosterone, right? And that's why you looked so like you lost your abs the next day. So this hormone called aldosterone, basically it regulates your water retention based on sodium fluctuations, really. So if you have, let's say every day you ate 3,000 milligrams of sodium, well, you shouldn't retain any water because that's your natural amount that your body's used to now, right? It's like your body just gets used to certain things. It balances itself out through a process called, you know, homeostasis. Your body just kind of tries to find balance in your body. So if you eat 10,000 milligrams of sodium every day, eventually your body probably get used to that. I don't know if that might be a little extreme, but so if you're eating 3,000 all the time, and then you all of a sudden eat 7,000, yeah, you'll probably be a little bit more water retentive the next day. So because now your body's like, whoa, that's a lot of sodium, aldosterone kick off, say, hey, hold water. I don't know why it does that. But that's what happens. So one of the things that I think is a scary thing that people do, because sometimes people do the opposite. They don't cut sodium, they load sodium like the day before a show. And they'll do like that burger and fries thing the day before the show, which I think is really risky. And I understand the reasoning why people think it would make sense, but I just think it's so risky considering how clean your diet's been for so long. You're introducing foods that you're not used to at the very end. So if you're holding water and you're always doing that, like burger and fry or dirty reload a day before the show, that might be a reason for it. If you're cutting your sodium too early before a show and you're flat, you're not able to get a pump, probably the reason for it. If you're cutting sodium for just a day before the show, maybe cutting it in half, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad idea. I don't know anything that proves that it's a good idea, but I just know that a lot of guys at the top level, all these top guys, do it, you know. And I even know some bikini athletes that do it too, and they've just always been like, it just works for me. You know, you have athletes like, for example, and the reason I'm more open to this too now is because of Frida, actually. As you know, Frida always has water retention issues, like always has water retention issues. She's probably like the most water retentive person her whole life she's had kind of like just water retention around her joints and stuff. And then even like doctors have like looked at it and like, I don't know why you do it. It's nothing wrong with you. It's just, we just can't figure it out. But she'll do that the last like day, and it works for her.
Only one day?
She'll generally taper down the last like week, but then like it's pretty low the last like day. Yeah. And so, but how do you argue the fact that someone who's always water retentive reduces their sodium and then they're not as much the day of the show? Like, how do you argue that?
We're all different people.
Yes.
You know? So I guess you have to kind of know yourself. I mean, whenever I said like before I met you, when I lost my abs like the next day and stuff, I was one of those people that I would kind of taper off my sodium throughout the week. I would like switch my seasoning, my regular salted seasoning for like Miss Dash and stuff like that. But yeah, it was kind of like one of those things. It's like I didn't really know any better, and looking back at it, that didn't really help me at all. It just made me very flat and just made me super reactive to a rebound afterwards.
Huge.
And that's definitely not ideal if you're doing like show to show to show to show, because then you're playing a game of like fluctuate, now get smaller, fluctuate, got to get rid of it, fluctuate. So it's like, you know, you have to know yourself. But I would say with anything, don't, especially if you're just now getting into competition stuff, don't do anything extreme, you know. If anything, just play around with it a little bit, but nothing that's, you know, unsafe or too much.
Yeah, I haven't done that in years. But now what I do know is that when I have someone cleaning up their diet towards the end of a prep, like, because towards the end of the prep, we clean everything up the last like week, naturally they have less sodium as part of that diet being so clean. So have we even been doing it indirectly the whole time, and that's what we're getting, part of the effect that we're getting? Who knows, you know? That's the thing is with this stuff, it's like it's never solid. Like a year from now I might do another podcast and be like, even thinking about that, it was so stupid, because a year ago, 2 years ago, I'd be like, never do it, right?
Yeah.
And I still haven't done it for most people directly, at least. I know that, but I just keep, you know, looking and researching and talking to other people and always trying to advance it. And the more I do it, I think science gives us an awesome base of what we need. But then when you go into practical application of these extremes, you really do need to look at, okay, what are the top guys doing, and does it make sense? As long as it's not unhealthy to the point where it's going to, like, you know, give you some serious health risks. Is it necessarily dangerous for the supposed effect? How many of them are consistently doing it? Okay, if they're all, you know, so like you have to like keep using that data, because it's data that you're not going to get from science. And this is another thing I'll say to like a science guy. I'll say, hey, and this is like my two arguments for them, because it's always so funny, because they're like always like, all right, like so set in their ways, and you got to loosen up on that. I used to be like that when I was younger. And I would say, you ever see that study with that guy who was 250 pounds at 4% body fat? Did you ever see that study about whatever? And they'll be like, no. I'm like, oh, that's because it doesn't exist. They don't test guys who are 4% body fat at 250 pounds or bikini athletes who are stage ready for a week. You know, it's not in the test group. It's college kids. That's like the best case scenario. Usually it's like college kids who are somewhat fit. It's not like these high level performing bodybuilders. You know, it's
good point.
Super, super rare that they'll get. And if they did, it's not a group large enough to really give you a good, you know, example. Like, so it's really difficult. So you kind of have to look at that. Okay, what are these guys doing? You know. So I know it's some dumb analogies I'm giving you, especially that immortal one. But the immortal one's funny because it always gets driven off guard. Like, prove that I'm not, you know, because it's like the only one way to prove it, right? So it's so stupid. Someone told me that once, and so I say it, I still repeat it. It was actually a professor said that. It's so funny. Like, but you can't. Like, the point is that everyone is a little bit different, and you know, there probably isn't a guy that ever will be, but you can't prove it until they're dead. You know? So it's funny. It's a funny way of like looking at things and thinking about things, right?
Very true. Very true. I think. One of the biggest, I guess, misconceptions, I still get this question all the time in my inbox. Like, Ashley, I'm holding weight around my arms. What would you suggest to burn my arm fat? Or insert any body part. And it's like, here comes the theory of spot reduction of fat, right? And I think like a good analogy to use for this would be, you know, think of your body as a pool, and it's like a community pool. So we got the shallow end, we got the deep end. So you can drain the pool, which is the equivalent to losing fat, right? You can drain it and drain it. Eventually, it's all going to drain out. But the shallow is going to drain out faster than the deep end, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like, if we're thinking about it with our bodies, we all have those stubborn body parts or areas that just don't want to lose fat. There's fat and it's just like so stubborn to get rid of. You'll see other parts of your body get leaner faster. For me, my abs tend to get leaner faster than like my glute hamstring tie-in area, for example. And I think like a lot of people don't realize that it's like, it's a process. You have to take your time with it, and maybe it still at the end of the day won't be the result you want just because of genetics. But it's like we can't pick and choose where to burn the fat. But I will say, like, if you're looking at it more like if you're building muscle there, it'll be more 3D, which I guess can give you the illusion that it's leaner there, but not necessarily.
Ashley, I really like your analogy there.
Oh, we're all about the analogies today.
That was so good. I've never, what's funny is that I use all these go-to analogies, and as soon as you said the pool thing, I was like smiling because I was like, why haven't I ever used this? This is a great analogy. Like, this is awesome.
Oh, that's very flattering. See, like, I like your dead person analogy.
Right?
You're a
I use another one I use a lot is the bullets in the gun. Like, you have to have a certain amount of bullets in the gun to get through a prep. You can't just fire all your bullets right away. But the pool one is so dead on. That's a really good one. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, when you have fat in a stubborn area, like guys, it's their lower back. Some women, it's their lower back too, but mainly it's the glutes, like the bottom of the glutes, the tie-in area, the outside of the hips, and then the tricep. That's like women is consistent, and we just store body fat differently. But she's right. It'll have to come from there eventually. It's just not going to come from there first. And so you might have to get leaner to the point where, and what I've seen too, which is weird, and there's other guys that agree with this too. And this is another thing you're not going to be able to prove by science. Another thing that is experience is going to be the key, the key education on that. What I've found is that once someone gets it off once, it's generally easier the second time, third time, like in a prep. Doesn't make sense. You're not going to be able to prove by science, but it seems to be pretty consistent. Like I always say first prep, worst prep, First prep, worst prep. Just get there once. Get there once. Do whatever you got to do to get there. Hopefully we get there with high calories, low cardio. But if we don't, whatever. Suck it up. Get there once. And then after that, maintain it to some capacity. Stay within that like 6 to 8% of your stage weight is what I generally say. And then from there, if you're there, you're not going to have a hard time. Even if you go up a little bit, let's say you go up 12%, it seems like the second, third time, it's easier to get rid of that stubborn area. Though your preps may get harder and harder, the stubborn area seems to be less like it doesn't, I don't know. I don't know if it just goes back differently or what. I don't know. But
yeah, that is like, that's
weird.
One of those things like they would be very hard to find somebody that can fit the mold to study. But in the sport, that may be the case. But yeah, that is like contradictory to like the I guess, I wouldn't even call it a theory, but how fat actually never disappears. Like a fat cell won't disappear unless you get lipo. It just shrinks and gets bigger and shrinks and gets bigger. So unless you suck that out or cut it off, it's always going to be with you. So that's very interesting that like you kind of maybe there's a possibility that you're like training your body to not.
There's a lot of guys who say the same thing too, and like high level guys. So I'm like, is it a thing?
It's actually the first time I've heard it, but see, this is why I like doing these kind of podcasts. I like learning.
It's kind of cool. There was who did a podcast with this not too long ago? Jeff Nipper did something. He said something similar along the lines. Like it seems like the second time was just like easier for someone to get there without losing so much muscle, things like that. So there seems to be like some consensus around that with these guys who've done a lot of preps. They're like, I don't know. It just seems like he doesn't store it there as much anymore or whatever, or it's just easier. Maybe I don't know. So it's definitely like a one of those one-off theories that you're never going to be able to figure out.
We'll never know, but it's something to think about.
One thing's for sure, first prep, worst prep. First prep, worst prep is pretty consistent, I would say. So now I will say, unless someone's just been sitting on the couch and it's like their very first transformation, then that just flies by. But if someone's been working out for like 5 years and then they've always been, they're staying in pretty good shape and then they're just trying to get that extra lean that first time, usually that's one of the harder ones.
Right.
So I don't know.
So I wanted to go back a little bit, how you mentioned briefly that men and women typically hold fat in different areas.
Yeah.
And maybe this also goes into like spot fat reduction as well. So if there is a certain hormone within the body that causes a fat cell to be, or fat to be distributed like more in one area than the other, like I've heard of cortisol before, like the stress hormone, right? Cortisol. Is that's typically core fat, correct?
Well, I think that they're still not fully able to like link it.
Okay.
I think if I was just guessing on it, and this is something I don't know a ton about, but if it was something just intuitively thinking about something, if you think about the dominant hormones in both of those people, in women and men, testosterone is obviously dominant in men. If I were to just on the surface think, okay, how does what store what more? Testosterone, obviously guys are naturally just holding more in their belly fat, right, and in their lower back. I would assume that testosterone would be more in the belly fat, more in the back, and then estrogen dominance would be more in the hips and in the triceps, that type of thing. I would just assume that. I think cortisol gets a kind of a bad rap for the hormone that it is. So cortisol is a stress hormone, but because it's a stress hormone, people give it a lot of they think of it, I got to reduce. But cortisol is actually shown really, really high levels after a workout, right? So it's because of the stress of the workout. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It has a lot of positive effects with cortisol. Now, prolonged elevation of cortisol, that's when things get bad. So it's not that we have to avoid it, it's that we have to avoid long periods of it. And stress does raise cortisol, and then that can help with, inhibit body fat loss, not through strictly cortisol, but through its processes. So the hormone reaction of it. So it's, so cortisol gets a little bit of bad rap, but what I will say is someone who's stressed out, anytime someone's stressed out, period, I think it's just a chain reaction of hormones that are happening that it's going to cause someone to not lose body fat optimally. And the thing is, it's not just cortisol. A lot of it is your thyroid. We're jumping in the hormones and stuff, but thyroid is a big factor of that too. So you have thyroid hormones in your body. You have T3 and T4. You're predominantly T4 at 80%, and you want to have conversion to T3, right? So you want to convert T4 to T3. That's going to help with fat metabolism more than anything. So when you're having really low caloric deficits, really high levels of stress, you're going to have less conversion going on. So that's going to affect metabolism too. So there's a lot of factors that affect metabolism. And when you have someone that's really low in their calories and even low in their body fat, these things happen at higher amounts.
Right.
So the more stress you have, and people don't understand, is stress isn't just stress at work, your boyfriend not sleeping, it's in the gym too. It's your body stressing out because you have low fat and you're doing tons of energy and you're in this caloric deficit for long periods of time. That's stressful to the body. So these things start accumulating, and it does get harder to lose body fat towards the end. Now, here's another thing we can't figure out, right? Is the theory that it gets harder towards the end because there's less fat, or does it get harder towards the end because all these processes are happening? Or is that just a natural thing that occurs that they both synergistically make it harder to lose fat because it's trying to preserve you, right? Which is probably most likely.
True.
But yeah, it's so we can't prove that either. So the thing is, you have all these processes happening in the body towards when you get leaner that make it really, really hard on you. So for example, we heard about leptin and ghrelin, and leptin basically is your hunger hormone. I'm hungry, right? And it actually suppresses your satiety hormones. So it actually can tell your basically keep your ghrelin down, which says I'm full. So the more fat you have, the less of that hormone is around, right? Because your body's we don't need any fat, we're good, right? But the less you have, the more hungry you are. So everything's working against you. So it's not just cortisol and stress, it's low fat, high leptin, less conversion. It's really a landmine out there.
Yeah.
it's really against, your body really works against you at the end to lose fat. It's trying to not, and I always say this, you're not supposed to be that lean, you know? It's not what the body wants to do. It's completely counterintuitive to what we're designed to do, which is have energy and not spend energy so we can survive. Because the body doesn't know that everything's so easy for us now. And we're just in a place Where for us, we're lucky that it is easy for us, to get around. Go to the refrigerator to get food.
Right.
We don't have to go out and climb a tree or go out and hunt an animal. Like we're in a really cool spot where we can like just on purpose eat less, which is crazy to even, you know what I mean? So it's so weird to think about that. Like people are just trying to, a lot of places people are trying to just eat, and we're like trying to eat less on purpose. Like, oh, I just better not eat right now because I want to be skinny, already lean.
Like I'm just thinking of this like comparison, right? The sloth, okay? Such a cute animal. It eats leaves all day, which is very low calorie food, and it moves so slow. And the reason why it all kind of ties together, it doesn't want to spend too much energy because it doesn't eat a lot of calories from those leaves and stuff. Yeah. So that's why it's such a lazy thing. You don't see them very active. They're just kind of,
That's great.
I don't know. I just thought of that. Like, they're so cute. I love sloths.
Are that you like sloths?
Can we have a sloth as a team mascot?
I mean, probably would take much if you lease one tree, probably get the job done.
A sloth.
Team
mascot.
Where are those,
the sloths.
Where are those like from?
Probably rainforest, maybe Brazil.
Huh. I wonder if some of it's like they have to move slow to not look like, no, they're too big to be prey to like airborne, right? Or maybe they look slow so to not get killed by cats, too?
No,
Like
maybe, because they don't cause that much ruckus, but they don't want to go through their energy expenditure.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's funny.
They're just,
That's crazy.
So cute.
We're on animals now.
Yes. Back to fitness.
You know what? Let's go off topic for a second. What's your favorite animal?
Oh, the sloths are really cute. I think giraffes are adorable.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's an interesting animal to be a.
I haven't really given it much thought.
Huh.
All I can say is I'm more of a cat person than a dog person.
Yeah.
Oh.
You did like cats, but you don't want one.
Just like I don't want kids. I want responsibility and I want freedom.
Yeah. We went to the cat cafe in Japan.
Yeah.
And then we also went to one in Denver, which is really cool. If you guys are ever in Denver area, they have one in Denver, it's okay. Nothing like the one in Japan. The one in Japan was awesome.
That one was cool.
Yeah, she was in heaven. She had her cat ears on. It was pretty fun. Pretty fun.
I still have the photos of you doing this.
The cat scratch?
Yes.
You know what's funny? They have these like cat popsicles, and I don't know what's in them. And you buy them for like, I don't know, it was like $5 to buy like a cat popsicle. And then the cats all come and they lick it. And there was this one cat, and I did it twice. This one cat came in and he took a big bite of it and took it off the stick. Like he learned how to do it.
And then he ran away.
And he ran in his cubby. It was like this big, like giant cubby where they all go under if they don't want to come out. And he ran in, ate it, and like all the cats like chased him. He was in his own corner in there where none of the cats could get it. It was so funny. Oh. And I was like, that little jerk, So I went and bought another one, and like all the cats were just licking it. And this guy came out of nowhere, took it again.
He's the con artist.
He was smart, man.
Like a pickpocketer.
It was a catastrophe.
Wow. Nice one.
Yeah, I don't know my favorite animals. Probably, besides a dog. I mean, it has to be the dog. But I have given you credit. You've gotten a lot better at with the dog.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike dogs. I just feel like I can relate more to cats.
Yeah.
Like, that is like, if I was an animal, I'd be a cat. Like kind of like I'm sometimes like, leave me alone kind of thing. Like, let me have my space. Like, let me come to you kind of thing. But don't annoy me, you know? Because dogs can be overwhelming. They're a little annoying, like, But I feel like I'm like a cat, and like, I'll be your friend if you have food, but then I'll just go away. And then I'll, they're just... Anyway.
That's funny. Yeah, well, you've done really good with dogs the last couple years.
I don't hate them. I just they're too much for me. They're like a kid, especially the big ones, and they take massive dumps. And then they wake you up with slobbers and stuff. Like, I just don't see myself like...
Yeah, it's really funny. When Ashley first saw dudes, like, she was like didn't really know what to do with them.
Am I touching it right? Is it...
like...
Do they?
But now she pets him. She does this. It's just good. She pets him, gives him a little high.
Dudes is a chill dog. Though. Yeah, he's not annoying.
No,
he doesn't even bark. He's really cool.
If you guys are ever here, Dudes is usually at the prep center, and
he's
also
a Labradoodle.
Yeah,
he looks like a fried chicken dog. You know what I mean? Have you seen that meme where like the dogs are like sitting all together and their heads are tucked under, and you don't know if it's like fried chicken, a bucket of fried chicken, or dogs?
You gotta send me that. That's hilarious.
They look like fried chickens.
That's funny. Yeah, he's a good dog. So if you guys ever hear, he's the gym dog. He's our door greeter. He goes says hi to everyone. He doesn't have an enemy in the world. But speaking of the prep center too, just so you guys, in case you guys are in, we're posting this on Friday. So we're going to have our team workout, our first team workout on Saturday. We can't, everyone's keeps asking me, when are you going to do grand opening? When are you going to do grand opening? I've been told that I can't do a grand opening, which is, understood, at least, like they're allowing me a lot of freedom. They didn't license me as a gym so I can have more people in here. So they've given me a lot of like leeway. So I'm like, I'm not going to push it. But so we're allowed to have a good amount of people in here, but not like grand opening amount of people. They're like, just keep it easy. We're already giving you this type of, where I can't get shut down if there's a shutdown comes around. So I can't do a grand opening, but we're going to have like small groups opening. So Saturday, it's 10 to 12. We have team lift. 11:30 is men's physique posing. 12 o'clock is bikini posing. It'll be every Saturday. There's not a show. For this Saturday, it's just for team. After starting in March, it'll be for everyone. You can come down just to posing, not to the lift, unless you're on the team. And then we're having a thing with Angels next week.
Yes, that will be the 26th and 27th.
Yes.
Next weekend.
So go to their site to register
Angels
for it.
Competition Bikinis.
You do have to register because we can't have 70 people in the building at the same time. Has to be, we're there, I forget the limitation number, but we have it set at 30 people per class. And so there's like one class left on Saturday now. So, but yeah, anyway, just in case you guys have that for next week, in case you're in Vegas, you come pose with Ashley, me, and probably Frida and Anya will be here. So it'll be a good time.
Good time.
Anyway, back to subject. That was a fun segue. Animals and CPC. So what else are we talking about with fat?
I wanted to know, Adam, well, maybe I didn't want to know because I already know. But I wanted the viewers out there to know and the listeners. We've been through this before. And I think like there's this huge like myth that bikini competitors are a lot leaner than what they actually are. Because one of the most common questions I get is, what's your body fat percentage, And then when I tell them like, well, if I'm off season, it's probably like 15-ish. They're like, huh? What? But this girl on Instagram said she's 6% body fat and she doesn't look as lean as you. And listen, they're not saying they're lying. I don't accuse anybody of like trying to sound leaner than they are. I don't think it's a bragging point for bikini. But I think like there's some inaccurate methods to calculate your body fat. And it's like, I don't know, it's just everyone thinks that we're a lot leaner than we actually are. Like I said in the other podcast like a month ago, like some girl thought I was like at a dangerously low body fat percentage all year round. And I'm like 15, chill, Like it's like people don't realize that bikini competitors really, especially bikini competitors, we're not as lean as people think.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember there was like a famous podcast with like Joe Rogan and Ronnie Coleman, and he said he was like 0.2 or 0.4, and that was it. Like not like 4.4. Yeah, like 0.2 or 0.4. And it's just that he was just getting a test from some skinfold caliper or something that just couldn't read that low of a test.
And it's not saying he's lying. I'm just saying they're inaccurate.
That's what he was told, and then he's very much out there saying, hey, I'm not the expert. I'm like, I have a coach, I have this, I have that. So it's not like he was like, that's just what I was told. He's like, that's what I was told. But yeah, no, you can't physically get there without, like, you'd be pretty ill at that. I don't know if at 0.2 you might die. I know that, you get to 0, they say you're going to die, but I guess that's another thing you can't prove, right? So you can't prove it.
Well, you start eating your muscle, right?
I don't think you could be that lean. No. I don't think you could even be under, I honestly don't think you could be under 3% and preserve a high amount of your muscle. These guys that are saying that they're 3%, 4%, like they're not doing the right tests. Like I would say a bodybuilder on stage, high level, pro level bodybuilder, probably like 5-6%. And everyone's like, no way, they're leaner. You got to understand, when you're that muscular, you look leaner. You look way leaner. You don't have to be that lean to show muscle when you have 300 pounds of it. Like it's not, you don't have to be that crazy lean, So for you to be, let's say you're 5% body fat and you're 250 pounds, well, then at 250 pounds, that'd be 12 and a half pounds of fat on you. That's very little, very, very little fat on someone like that. So, it's highly unlikely they're getting leaner than that. And even if they were, I don't think that there's going to be a real test that could show. Even a DEXA scan isn't the most accurate test. Like, well, actually, a DEXA scan is the most accurate test, but even a DEXA scan isn't that accurate. People say it's just going to be hard to say. But I don't see it. So bikini competitors, realistically, like a shredded bikini competitor, like I would say, like if you looked at let's say Janet at the Olympia, who was pretty lean this year, probably was like 13, maybe broke into the high 12s. But like when you see someone a female who's less than 10% body fat, I've seen it probably twice. And one was Heather Grace at the Olympia, and man, it was...
She was women's physique.
Women's physique. It was nuts. Like, I was like, how did you do that?
She had striated glutes.
She had striated striations.
Oh.
Her striations had striations. No, she had it was so crazy to see her. Like, it doesn't make sense, you know? Like not just like glutes that were shredded, but like it was just, you could see it looked like a human anatomy chart. And then these girls are walking around saying they're 6%, and they're like, not even
bikini.
Yeah, not even like 17%. And they're like, oh, I was 6%. We did it. And I'm like, no, like, you would, I don't know what you would look like at 6%.
Right.
Yeah. So DEXA scan test, Heather was one of the leanest, and there's another woman's physique woman that I saw was the leanest. And even Heather, she'll self-admittedly say this, because I posted it once and she commented, and she said the leanest she ever got was like 9.8 or something, like barely got under the 10s, or 9.6. And it was like, it's so crazy looking. It's, you wouldn't even want to do that in bikini. You wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, it wouldn't help you, that's for sure.
It didn't matter how good you looked, you'd lose.
Yeah. I mean, it's always difficult because you don't know what scan or test they're using for body fat. And at the end of the day, it's just like you can't really be as precise. But I think like when you start seeing consistent numbers, like Heather, she's never been like super below that. It's kind of like, okay, well then she's in that range. And same thing for me. It's like my leanest, I was like at one time like high 12s, maybe low 13s. My absolute leanest, and I was too lean that show. But usually I have around like 13 or 14, I would say, for the stage, and then off season 15, 16. But I need to get that tested soon. I haven't gotten a body fat tested.
It was our first mile high together, and then all these videos came out. Is she too lean now? Yeah! Is she too lean?
I was too lean. I overshot. I was like, my comeback show, I was like so afraid to not be lean enough, because I was like, oh, if I'm coming back, I'd rather be too lean than too soft. So I
was like, too lean for what? To win? Because she won. Yeah. Like all these guys are like make all these videos.
Oh, no.
Is she too lean? I'm like, she won. So no, she wasn't too lean. By definition, too lean means you don't win because of how lean you are. These guys make these videos, these clickbait videos. I'm like, dumbass. If she's too lean, she doesn't win. If she's lean enough where it's not too much, she wins. Like that. So you pushed it. I'll definitely say you pushed it. But for that show, you weren't too lean because you won.
I was like 112 or something. I think
16.
116?
16.
Why am I thinking 112? That was, oh, never mind. That was like when I was an amateur. I competed at 112 once. I didn't have a lot of muscle.
As a reference, 19 is pretty lean for her. So 16 was pretty dialed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was where we were trying to figure out if we should reload or not. We didn't want to mess things up. You looked good. I remember that. That was like a lot of like unknowns at that point. Yeah. That's right. The first prep, it's hard to nail someone at first prep, especially at that level. Like you need a few preps. Like you need, even at that level, like 3 preps to really start figuring someone out, because it's like it's splitting hairs at that level, man. Yeah. So
I think another good thing to bring up as well is how even as bikini competitors, like higher body fat looks better on some competitors rather than other competitors as well. And this is another thing that we've gone into before, but I don't expect everyone to listen to every single podcast. Yeah. So I always go in assuming that maybe they didn't hear. I think I'm a competitor that I will look my best when I'm leaner in comparison to the other competitors. I look better as a leaner competitor. And then some competitors can pull off being softer a lot better than I can, which I wish I could pull off being softer. I really do. But I just kind of lose my pop. Yeah. I think the judges also appreciate my physique when I'm leaner too. So it's like, I can't be too lean, but I definitely need to be leaner than most, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, you definitely push it, and there's that line, And the thing is, and we talk about body fat distribution too, you tend to hold in your lower glutes and the inside of your legs, in your body fat too. So unless you get lean enough, your legs start looking thicker too.
Yes.
So like that's another thing, kind of relates to this topic too. And then and that's the thing at that pro level. Some girls are just going to like a different way. They're just going to like them. Some girls harder, some girls softer, and some girls they just want shredded. I remember there was a girl, it was like 7-8 years ago, and they were like trying to, I won't say her name, I guess, but we were trying to get her a pro card, and we kept going off of what the judges said. It was like 7 national shows in, and back then you could only win the overall. And so it was like top 2 in the overall or something. So it was like she'd get there, but she wouldn't win the overall. She'd get there, she wouldn't win the overall. Like it was like she'd get 3rd, 2nd, and it was like all these, she was always just right there. And the judges, we just kept going off what the judges said. Oh, just bring her in a little fuller, a little this, a little that. And I'm like, you know what? Just come in shredded. Let's just see what happens. Like just get peeled to the bone. Like not too crazy to the point where it's like women's physique, which wasn't even around back then. But let's just get you peeled. Let's just see what happens. Pro card overall. And I'm like, so like you have to like, and I always tell everyone, you got to test it. You got to get your range, In bikini, you should, especially if you're in the early stages of bikini, you should find your range. What's too much for you? What's too soft for you? Like we know our range now. Mile High is the high end of lean. And, we have other shows that were like Korea or something might have been or Japan. Japan would have been the high end of soft, right? So somewhere in those two is that perfect where they want you the best. So like it's good to find your range, especially in bikini. If you're in men's physique or something, there is no range anymore. It's just there's no such thing as too lean. 2013, it's funny. I was talking to Mark about this yesterday. 2013, you had to be a little bit like you couldn't be as lean as a body, but you couldn't be that shredded. And Mark, he was like, I was like, yeah, that I remember I was telling him, I was like, I remember looking at you, and I was like, yeah, I could do that, right? I could accomplish that physique. And but men's physique, he's like, men's physique now, I look at them, and he's like, and I was like, even when I won the Olympia, just to get a pro card, they look better than that now just to get a pro card. So like men's physique has gotten into full on baby bodybuilding. You're just as lean. The leaner you are, the better. There's no such thing as too lean in men's physique. If someone's telling you this, that they're not. That's not the reality of things. And they're like Frank Zane big, probably bigger than Frank Zane. Some of these guys,
right?
Like it's turned into a whole bodybuilding thing. So yeah,
crazy shapes. I mean, they even got the smallest little waist now too. It's like such a woo. I'm like, dang, the V taper is out of control.
Crazy. And then the abs that these guys have in men's physique now, it's nuts. And a lot of these guys too, and this is a good thing for you guys to hear because it's kind of on the subject of fat and abs and whatnot. A lot of the men's physique guys out there, a lot of these top guys, they're training their abs every day. And it's funny because everyone's like, oh, you don't train the abs because they'll get too big. Well, in men's physique, you want crispy abs. You want crispy abs. Like Ashley doesn't want to have any more detail in her abs because it's bikini. But for the guys who are worried about getting their waistlines thicker, just know a lot of these men's physique guys are training their abs like daily and they're not getting their waistlines thicker. They still have this tight, snatched waist, So that's a good thing for people to learn that are always like thinking, oh, my waistline's going to get bigger if I train my abs, so I'm just not going to do them. No, those guys do it all the time. And but they also do like waist training exercises too. So,
that's good to know. And it's also important to like you briefly mentioned too, in bikini, they don't want them too crispy either. So if that is like in my situation, since my abs are like one of my areas that gets leanest faster, leaner, whatever. I got to be careful with the abs, especially, and I got to avoid purposely training them because if I'm already lean there, and then I put on a little bit of muscle in my abs, they're really going to turn into they're going to be 3D abs, which in bikini, you don't want 3D abs. You want like flat. Some detail, but nothing that's like you can rub your finger and there's bump, 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 bump. You know what I mean? So that's why I always get that question why I don't train abs. So there you go. It's because I don't want any more development.
That's a good way to define it.
Yeah.
A little bit of detail, but not like
3D.
Yeah, exactly, but not 3D. Yeah, because I'll see girls that have just the flat and there's no detail at all. And it's just such a large area to not have any detail.
Right.
It's like, it's like a third of your body, right? And it's like, it's so much skin to not have any detail. And I feel like when girls look skinny, that's because they don't have that they have a large area of nothing going on, when they look skinny. And so I think that for me, I like the more athletic looking bikini competitor, but I think just a little bit of detail, just a little bit of something in that area really creates that lean package versus skinny package, So that's kind of how I tell, women to work out is if you have some abs, then you're probably fine. You don't need a ton. But if you have none and you're just flat all the way down, you probably need a little. So train them until that happens.
That's good to note too, to add the appearance that, hey, I work out rather than I'm just ribs and a small waistline with ribs popping out. Because if you don't have any muscle to kind of cover the ribs, you can be a little too ribby.
Yeah, when you see a girl who's posing hard, especially these days, a lot of women are posing harder now, so they'll be tall and upright. And when you're tall and upright, and then you're kind of sucking your stomach, and that's when those ribs pop out. So if you don't have any abs or any muscle in your torso, then you have your ribs popping out. Even if your shoulders look awesome, your glutes look awesome, you still look kind of skinny from the front, and that's never the look that's gonna do well in a fitness competition, Mm-hmm. So I've never seen it do well, at least, but that's something that if you look at your pictures, if you see that, maybe decide if you should be training your abs a little more until that happens. So, yeah.
Do you ever have clients, Adam, that kind of ask you about cellulite, or if you know of any remedies for cellulite and all that? Because I get asked about cellulite. I mean, but I'm a girl, so I think like a lot of times a girl will ask a girl for that because maybe I went through it or would know something about it. But do you get that as well from competitors?
I do get it. Now, here's the thing, which seems to be consistent, is that the leaner, like when you're lean, like the cellulite's like for the most part gone on like almost everyone, Like if they're stage lean, that seems to be a really thing. Now, I'm not an expert at cellulite. Now, I know that there's a lot of like treatments and stuff you can do for it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how effective those are because I've always been like, well, let's just lose the fat, Like it's not gonna, if it's, I believe, what is the cellulite technically? It's hardening of tissue under the skin, or is it pockets?
It's like pockets, but it's more, women are more likely to get this than men, obviously. For men, it's super rare, but it has something to do with the cells and how they're lined up, the fat cells. Whereas men, I believe they have like crisscross. For some reason, women have vertical. So that means like men has that extra security to kind of keep the fat in place, whereas women, it kind of seeps through. And coming from personal experience as well, I did have cellulite when I was at my heaviest. I had it on like my hamstrings and down here, and when I sat down, I would get like pockets where my hamstrings were at. So I did have that, and that was in 2017 when I was 25 pounds heavier, which I referred to in the last podcast. But, I was really like self-conscious about it. Like I didn't want to wear shorts or anything. And I did go to like a med spa to see what I could do about it. And there are treatments out there that can be helpful, but they're just not like permanent. So I remember I had this one skin treatment like on my hamstring and underneath my butt area. I think it was called the Thermage treatment, Thermage. But anyway, they have them at most med spas, and basically like heats up that area with some sort of ultrasound technology frequency or something. I don't know. But it did seem to really tighten that area. And of course it didn't last that long, but for a temporary treatment that worked. But I will say what really worked was just losing the weight, the hardest part, right? So when I did lose the weight, I didn't have the cellulite anymore. And I won't lie, I have seen lean people though that still kind of have cellulite. Mostly it's like underneath like the butt and that kind of area. So I think like at some point it's something to do with age as well. Maybe women that are older might have a hard time getting rid of the cellulite, even if they are lean. But, again, that's like some things that you just can't change. But ultimately, if you lose enough weight, it shouldn't be that much of an issue. You would probably have to really try to see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've found that when people get lean and muscular enough that it tends to just be gone.
That's true. And what it could be as well is maybe they lost weight too fast, and some of it's like a little bit of skin with a little bit of fat.
Yeah.
And if you take the time to build that muscle kind of to fill in that loose skin or give the skin enough time to tighten, perhaps that will help it as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I just seems, when I have someone who's contest prep ready, cellulite's just never really a concern, even when they're older. But when I have someone who's small, I'll have it happen too, especially in the glutes, like you talked about.
Yeah.
Glutes and the back of the thighs when they're little and they haven't like filled out their frame yet. But after like a year of working out and they filled out their glutes, they filled out their legs, and they're lean enough, it tends to always be like, for the most part, gone.
Yeah.
If not gone, like dramatically improved, like very little.
Like you'd
left.
really have to try to.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. It's just filling out. Maybe it just fills it out a little better. I don't know.
That's true. And I guess that could be like just the skin elasticity of some women as well. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if men even deal with that quite as much, because I know men do have more collagen in their skin, correct? And that's why they age more gracefully, is from what I hear.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what I hear.
I would like to
tougher
see,
skin.
Yeah. I'd like to see if it's based on in total because they're bigger. Of course they'd have more because they're bigger. But
That's
is it per square inch? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. But it's I wonder if men also have like you see like dramatic weight loss, and you see the people with the loose skin.
Yeah.
And that's like the extreme example of it. But even on a smaller level, if you like lose weight and your skin doesn't catch up as much, that could be the cause of like some loose skin, maybe some of those fat cells that are yet to diminish, but they're kind of hanging on with that loose skin. And, hopefully it eventually tightens, or you just fill out that looseness, or a combination of the two. But it's very interesting. And just so you guys know, it's possible to get rid of it. I mean, I did. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but it's not like if you have it, it's there forever. And the best suggestion is just like lose the weight, I guess.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, look into it for yourself and do your own research. I know that the spa treatments, they have other spa treatments out there. I think I've also heard of dry brushing as well, where it kind of just, I guess, increases the circulation to that area. I don't know. Same thing with massages. I guess some types of massages can be beneficial too. I don't know. I'm always skeptical with those kind of things, but what I can tell you is that one spa treatment I did have, the thermage, did seem to help it at one point. It's not an issue anymore, but back when I was heavier, it was.
Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty good. We kind of covered a lot here. I think that was it. I think that there's probably a lot of like follow-up questions that you guys are going to have for this. So if you guys have any questions about, I guess, the particular subject of fat, maybe we'll do a round 2 of this and answer your questions about fat, like whatever. If you want us to dive a little bit deeper into those things, let us know the questions. You can DM them to Ashley at AshleyKFit on Instagram, me at Team Elite Physique.
Or just comment it in the YouTube video if you're watching the YouTube video.
Yeah, and then too, just so you guys know, and you can always text me. I do save all the texts, 303-536-3766. And if you want to, you can text LIFT to that number, and I'll send out weekly like exercise updates or whatever, just some tips stuff too.
You have to text the LIFT?
You just have to text it something. You don't have to text it LIFT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then it signs you up.
Okay, gotcha. I was like, man, I could have been getting some workouts if I typed LIFT.
There is a way to separate it, but it's like whoever's there, I just send them the same thing. I'm not that busy on it. So anyway, cool guys, but thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it. And hopefully we didn't sound too crazy today.
Fat facts. Woo.
Well, there it goes. All right. Bye guys.